Welcome back to another episode of Out of the Blank podcast. If you are new to the show, well, welcome. This is a conversational style show. Kasper Michaels here with me as a voiceover actor in Canada. Has lived a long fulfillment. I sorry, this is getting weird trying to introduce it in a professional way. Casper, it's nice to have you back on, my friend. It's good to see
I'm
you.
very happy to be here. Good to be here. Great way to start 2026.
Well, we had so many new subscribers to the show after I took my break for like 4 months and I had people commenting if I died or not. Well, I am not dead. The Lord has not taken me. But I am here just to try and introduce people to kind of what the show's about a little bit. It's conversational style, different topics, any topic I could think of. I'll have an email thing eventually on the channel where people can just email topics if they want to hear certain topics. And it's hard to know which camera to look in because there's 50 in front of me. Casper, how's it been, man? What are you moving again?
Actually, I am moving again. It's funny you mentioned Canada because I emigrated from Canada to the UK in 2007, and then after my brother passed away last year, I went. You know what? Why am I still in the UK? What am I doing here? I'm going to go somewhere where the weather's nicer, and because my job is basically remote. What do they call it? Um, Well, I'm just a remote agent. It doesn't really matter what it is. So I went, I could move anywhere. So I'm actually going to be moving to Malta. But it's not a very common thing. Like if you live in North America, a lot of people are like, Malta, where's that? It's just off of Italy. So
Hell yeah,
it's
man.
just around there. So I 300 days of sun, and I went, why not? Why not? So I'm actually in the process of moving right now. This is going to go down in the next week or so, and it's kind of bonkers. But I realized very quickly, um, it's funny when we first started doing this podcast. I realized you were a dreamer because you had all this JFK stuff, you had all this stuff going on, and I'm sure you ran into people that went, "Why? Why was this your thing?" And
Christmas parties are fun. I'm a good guy to have at Christmas
yeah, and
parties.
so it's that idea of sometimes people just don't get why. It's like trying to describe your favorite music to people or what a color is, and so if you ever, you end up telling people, well, I got a dream. I want to move to Malta. The amount of people that went, fantastic. I think that's great. But then there's the other side who went, why? Like, why do you want to move countries? And it's really strange. There's some of them who I know, who I thought I knew really well. And I think what it was is because they couldn't imagine themselves either getting involved in, whatever you're interested in. But a lot of people just couldn't understand why, if they wouldn't move, why would I want to move? And so they actually tried to talk me out of it. I've had a couple really good friends actually give me an intervention where they kind of pulled me aside at a party once and went, what are you doing? Like, why are you moving countries? Like, what's going on? And it felt really weird because I was going, well, it's a dream. I got a dream. And they're like, well, yeah, but it's kind of weird. Like, why are you moving countries? Aren't you happy here? And I go, well, no, I'm happy, but I mean, life's kind of short and let's run around and just do whatever we want. But sometimes when people don't get it, they just don't get it. And it becomes a bit bonkers. And so I've never been in a situation before where you might have as well, where, like you realize you're at a party that nobody wants to talk about, like JFK, and you kind of go, okay, so I'll just pull that back a little bit. And so there's been times where I like walked in and went, I don't talk about my dreams. Like I'll talk about things to other people, but there are just some people who don't want to hear it. And so it gets kind of weird. It kind of put a damper on some of my little bit of moving
Are you
projects.
like low key hinting at me not to bring up Malta? Like if I ask about Malta,
No,
can I want to know
no,
why?
no, no,
Why?
no, well, short story.
It can't be the sun. Come on. I know you're in like
No, no, no. The short story thing is it's actually it's tied in with my brother. In 2019, I was having one of I was pretty depressed. I was having a bit of a bad time, and my brother flew out from Canada to come visit me, and we never really kind of got along. My dad used to pit us against each other all the time. And so we were never really brothers. We were more like adversaries all the time, almost like through our entire lives. And we hit a point when we got older where it was like,
I just want to say briefly for any new people out there. His dad basically groomed him and his brother to be like these hockey players, and it didn't necessarily work out in that fashion. But they were almost drafted to the was Chicago
Oh
Blackhawks.
yeah, well yeah, it was Chicago. I got drafted to Chicago Blackhawks in 1983, and my brother, who was actually a pretty good ice hockey player as well, but he ended up getting drafted. He played baseball. He was actually a power pitcher, and he was the youngest member of Team Canada, the Olympic team. But they ended up dropping him because he was 16 and he couldn't go to the Olympics. So he was picked up by the Atlanta Braves, and he blew his shoulder, his rotator cuff. And at 22, they told him he was an old man, and that's like what? Like, and that's just the way sports is. You know, they were looking at like the Dominican Republic and Colombia and all, all these places and even Japan. And so him and I, yeah, he was, he stuck with sports. I went, I went screw sports, and I ended up becoming an actor, which is so bizarre because it has nothing to do with sports, but he stuck in with the sports stuff. So long story short, he came to visit me and we got really drunk one night and we kind of hashed out a lot of our issues we had, and it seems so weird where here's these two guys in their 50s kind of going, well, you were a prick. Well, you were, this. And then we ended up doing really well. We played you ever played crib? Do you know what crib is? It's a card game. Canadians will know, or particular if you grew up in Western Canada, you'll know what it is. But we ended up having a couple of rounds of that, and then he said to me, he just said, "If you could retire anywhere in the world, where would you retire?" And I went, "I don't know, probably Malta." And he went, "Why?" And I went, I don't think I know really because I've been twice, both times with my ex-wife. First time because it was a cheap flight, and the second time we just wanted to go somewhere that was a bit warmer. But she she brought her father with her, and those two they fought the entire time we were on the island. And I went, why do I want to go to this place? This is just bonkers. And then when my brother passed away, or the last thing my brother made me promise was, you got to go. You got to go. And I went, well, he goes, you spend a lot of time saying why. You should just say why not and go. And I went, yeah, yeah, maybe I'll go. And then he passed away in January, and I realized that it's been 5 years and I hadn't even thought about Malta at all, kind of thing. And I said, you know what? I'm going. I'm going. I'm just going to go. And so I just flipped everything around, started looking into it, started to go. And that's why I'm going. And I also looked into their internet setup, how they're doing all this, and it'll suit me pretty good. The ironic thing that's going to happen is since I live where I live in the UK, I live basically on the other side of London from all my friends. And it's so weird here. Like, like you probably drive everywhere you got to go. People here don't drive, they take the trains. And because driving here is ridiculous. The roads are all like old horse cart crap things. And so somebody will go, how far away do you live? And I go, well, 20 miles. And, if you're Canadian, you just go, okay, I'll see you in half an hour. If somebody here tells you I'm 20 miles away, that's a 3 hour trip.
Yeah,
It's ridiculous. So nobody comes to see me out here because I'm too far away. And what's probably going to happen when I move,
bro, come on. If you were Pam Anderson, no matter how far away you are, they're coming to see you. Come on now.
well, actually, what it is they've got kids and I don't have kids, so there's a lot of stuff. But
That's a fair
what
point.
what ends up happening is you end up getting, I don't know, let's say you get comfortable where you are and you get like, so all the friends that I had, they invited me for my birthday. They were going to take me out, but I had to go to them. And it was a 3.5, well, let's say a 3 hour train ride one way to go to them. And then we'd have birthday. So my birthday party would have been like half an hour long. And then I would have went, I got to get home. So I got to catch the train back. And the UK is just kind of weird that way. But so yeah, that's why I chose Malta. And the amount of people who said, yeah, I'm going to come visit, and they probably will, because surprisingly enough, you can get a plane from Malta to London cheaper than you can get for me taking a train from where I live into London. It's weird. It's just, you know,
Well, it's like Vegas. Vegas's flights are expensive, but the hotel night, like a night, like you stay at the Stratosphere, I think it's $75 a night, and like some hotels that look like, I would call it an exotic Olive Garden. It's got the weird brick. like kind
Oh,
of linings and all that
yeah,
type of
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's right.
very Italy theme, but then like there's just like a motel style and it's got like a pool in the middle and then like
Yeah,
shrubbery.
that's not Caesars, is it? That's no.
No, it's
There's
not Caesars. It's some like Marta something something.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
But it was like 75 bucks a night for a hotel room there, but the flights were like 500 bucks because me and my lady were thinking about going to Vegas and
They just had
possibly
a thing on
yeah.
they just had a thing on the Sphere the other day where they're saying because nobody's coming to Vegas, they're renting out advertising space on the Sphere, and they'll play anything as long as you spend $1 million.
What the I don't have a
Anything.
million dollars.
So, well, but so the first guy
Do
to
you
do it,
take debit cards?
well, that's a that's the thing. But this guy, I mean, he spent like $1 on his ad and then $1 million to play it. And it was something like, what is it, Kalish or something like that? And so he just wrote in pen on this thing saying, buy Kalish or something like that. And he wrote, it was looked like he wrote it on a napkin. And that gets shown on Sphere. He spent $1 million. But what's been happening lately is you have some rich kids going out there spending $1 million and it just plays cat videos like all and I am sure I imagine that's funny for like the first half an hour. But if you got to watch that all day and it's the same cat video just cycling over and over and over again, you kind of go, I think the Sphere is a great idea and all that stuff, but look, already they're taking advantage of it like they because nobody's coming to Vegas. There's I think it's sort of one of those odd things in the US or it's just in the world like for example like
Don't you just think the hype kind of died behind it, like a lot of
kind of
things
died,
do?
but there's so many things that are died. Like I had a great conversation the other day with somebody about the time of the heavy drinker is over. Um, like when you get into like,
My time has just begun.
well,
Sorry.
the way that they that you used to hire heavy drinkers in your companies in your corporations, a lot of like car companies, accounting companies, because you would do liquid lunches with your clients and you would say like, yeah, if you want to talk to him, catch him in the morning because when it's the afternoon, he's going to be toast, kind of thing. And drinking on the job was expected, kind of thing. And the whole heavy drinking culture from like the Mad Men era or whatever is gone. Like there's just something now that even the kids nowadays, not really. Not really going out much, they're staying home doing their stuff, but they're not really. There's the
It's because it's too expensive. It's too
yeah,
expensive. My birthday was the 31st of December, New Year's Eve. We did not go out. It was 20 degrees outside. There was nothing to do. Go out to a bar, spend what, 60? Everything was at least $200 for a ticket. You're given food and you're given some drinks. You're not given the amount you want. So it's like, I don't like for me, that's not, I'd rather just, I sat inside with my girl and her kids and we played games and went to the zoo, I think, for like 20 minutes before everybody got cold and started complaining. So then we got back here and then we played
that's it.
Stranger or we watched Stranger Things, the new episode, which I have not seen any of the others. So everybody was coming up to, did you see the final episode? I was like, yeah, but I haven't seen the rest. And they're like, you missed the other 5 seasons.
So it makes no sense. I have to admit I have not seen them at all. So
It's not, I mean, it's cool if you like that kind of stuff, I guess, but I'm not like, there's very few shows and movies I will sit and watch now.
Bluetooth
I,
disconnect. Bluetooth connection.
be quiet.
all right, Alexa's joining the
Yep,
conversation too, I guess.
exactly.
But I just think it's because like I don't know, there's too much out there as it is. Like there's so many podcasts out there, there's so much content out there. There's everything you can possibly think of. There's like 50 variations of it. And I think eventually people just get sick of it and they stick to what they like or what they hook onto, and then they don't want to really go anywhere else.
It is a bit bonkers, isn't it? It's like it's a no, podcasting. I think if you got a thing and you can do it, but the amount of people that are podcasting, it's sort of the new thing. Like podcasting is taking over from
Well,
like
even that's died down. That's not as big as it was after the pandemic. Everybody went to their jobs or gave up. I almost gave up on this. Holy crap, I don't even know why I'm back right
well,
now.
there's still a what happens now. I'm seeing a resurgence of like out of work actors, doing their podcasts and I think that's kind of funny where you see like the B movies from the or the ones who are doing like serial television.
They have a Stranger Things podcast,
I'll bet they do.
and it's just the actors talking about what they filmed and what they did. And I guess that's fun and
I
interesting.
suppose, yeah. Like, how long is that going to go? It's a sort of a thing. Like over here with the BBC, like the BBC, they're having so many problems with. Here you have to pay for your television. Like you pay
Damn.
money for like, but not just like getting cable or something like. Um, you have to pay the BBC what they call a TV license,
Yeah.
and that's supposed to pay for your not having any ads. Like BBC One has no ads, kind of thing. Or see, I can't even tell now.
You have to pay to watch 30 minutes straight of Viagra commercials before you can get to the
You,
news that tells you that there's so many shootings going on that the world's going to die
yeah.
tomorrow.
And so what's happening is you have a lot of people like going, well, I don't really watch BBC anymore. I get my news from podcasts, or I get my news from,
It's a fair point.
or for streaming, but they don't really watch. They're not. So mainstream news is kind of, well, the one thing with mainstream news, I don't know what it's like in the, I get an idea, but mainstream news is kind of lost the plot kind of thing where you're, they've lost a lot of followers because nobody's going, they're going, what are you talking about? This, like they're either so far behind or they're so biased that it's so obvious they're biased that people are going, well, I'd much rather like watch a podcast that at least is funny and humorous than watch you clowns. So unless it's the View keeps getting the crap kicked out of it. So
Nobody wants to see those squawking birds go. I don't know. Like for me, like it's difficult because I don't know. I'll watch a little bit of it, but I hear so many people at work just complain about like, could you put this channel on or this channel on? It's news. I'm like, I don't know about you. Like I listen to like maybe one podcast that's like Harlan Williams just go off and be insane because I find it funny. And then everything else is kind of just music related or like even TV shows. I'd just sit here and just hang out. There's nothing else to do.
there was a time when I used to like to watch the news because I wanted to find out sort of what was going on because I'm not a newspaper reader, so I would, and if that was I think I want to say that was a weird. That was in my 30s, so I was like, yeah. So maybe I'll watch the news and find out what's going on. And now there's just so many podcasts and so many things going on that it's like, how do you not know what's going on? And then sometimes you can get in trouble because you've watched the wrong person, and all you've done is watch the wrong person. Then you maybe told someone in the bar, oh yeah, well, I caught this podcast, and they're like, how could you? You lefty or you righty? And you're like, what? Like I just watched it. That's I didn't comment. I didn't troll anybody. I didn't do anything. And so that gets kind of a bit bonkers. You have to like over here they're arresting people for tweets. That, and they're still doing that. It's like, oh my gosh. It's like it's getting a bit
I mean, there's no freedom of speech anymore if that's what you're asking me, because you get shot now. Even if somebody of the government won't take you out, you will get shot.
it's
Dude,
sort of
can you
a
believe that? I can't believe I stopped my podcast and within 2 weeks, Charlie Kirk gets shot in like the lone nutter type scenario. And they're all talking about JFK and RFK. And I'm like, oh, I can't even talk about this.
well, actually maybe it was a good thing that you didn't because a lot of the people that did were basically they were discrediting themselves just by, opening up their
I
mouths
was
and,
just
and
like,
talking.
it's terrible, no matter if it's like a ploy or whatever you want to call it. It's just horrible in general. But it was like wild to me to see the number of people that were interested in talking about it. I was like, you guys don't care about JFK. And they're like, yeah, 60 years ago. This is like right now. I was like, okay, well, past predicts the future.
Yeah. It's just and that actually I was thinking about this morning. I was wondering about do you like a lot of the stuff that you talk about is literally like 60 years in the past. And is that much more enjoyable to do as a podcaster than sort of deal with like the stuff that's going on now? Or is it the stuff that's going on now shifts so fast or it's just so there seems to be a lot of it's there was a lot of misinformation back then. There's a lot of misinformation now. Which is more fun to sift through? Is that kind of why you like sort of lean back into the JFK RFK stuff, or is that
No, I think it's just because it's interesting that there's something about history that you, I guess, might have learned, and then there was something else behind it. But I think But even with that, I've drifted so far with the LBJ tapes now. Like I have a couple coming up. There'll be a conversation for sneak peek preview for some people listening to this episode. There'll be a conversation on RFK and LBJ's relationship, and then there'll be another one after that about the LBJ tapes and a different look at his administration from someone from the archives of the LBJ library. But back to the main point of things, I just like history, man. I find it fun when you're able to like, is that true? Like I've heard so many things, and it's like being a kid. You just kind of accept what adults tell you, and then next thing you know, you start finding out it's not as true as what maybe way they put it. Like Santa Claus is, it's like there's good blemishes and there's the bad ones. And digging through history, I've just become more not apolitical, just not really caring so much about the either sides, but looking at both sides are kind of different intentions. And
Okay, yeah, that is it? Because yeah, what's the rule always been the winners write history, and so going back and looking at the actual story and going, well, okay, they won, but what did they not put in the book that you could find? And I suppose when you could find out what's going on is like these days. I find it really strange that people are trying to go back and sort of rewrite the past, particularly when I don't want to get too much into race politics, but when you're going back and somebody is showing like 16th century, like there's a video game comes out, it's set in like 16th century Slovakia or something like that, and there's no black people in it, and people complain about that. They go, well, there's no, and you go, well, in the 16th century, there wouldn't have been. It's like, well, we need to be represented. And you kind of go, well, then the thing about this is they're trying to be historically accurate. And that type of thing kind of bothers me because it's sort of like, I understand representation, but I don't want the past changed to, how they'll try and change a story, they'll try and do something. And there's past, and then there's, like you were saying, with a lot of the stuff with the JFK stuff, there was a lot of stuff that was not said. And from what I've understood from you, like listening to you, the main issues with the JFK stuff was not what was said, but what wasn't said. So it wasn't that there were a lot of lies told, there were lies by omission. But what's trying to happen now with a lot of people is they're trying to, no, we're going to lie. We're going to insert some people here. We're just going to change the past because we don't like it. It doesn't fit well with our sort of what's going on. I think that's a big waste of time. With the so I was talking to somebody the other day about geography, and they were like, I couldn't afford to keep up with geography. Like if I needed a new geography textbook every year because the country's changed shape every flipping year. I mean, when I was in school, that was it. That's what you got. This was it. And then, then the wall came down and we all needed new textbooks and all this kind of stuff. And that was all changing. And then lately I've been hearing that from friends back in Canada that, a third of the country wants to leave. Again, like the funny thing about Canada is there's always somebody that wants to leave. And that's always the big threat is we're leaving. Like Quebec has been trying to leave since 1975. The problem with Quebec leaving is it's surrounded by the rest of Canada. So if they left Canada, they'd have to trade with Canada because there isn't like it's not like if like with Mexico, United States, Canada, it's not like you can just turn to your neighbor and go, well, we'll just talk to them. Whereas Quebec is just surrounded by Canada. So, but I heard that there's 3 provinces that want to leave, and that's kind of like that's just bonkers. That's all this is going on, and how the politics are sort of shifting borders. That's so much these days. I didn't think that would happen. It's just nuts.
I'm curious to pick up this conversation when you get into Malta and live there for a little bit to see if it's just like that there, because I think it's like that everywhere.
I think so. The thing about Malta is it's the second smallest country in the world. So when, from what I understand,
Behind what? New Zealand?
no, I'm not sure what the smallest country is. Yeah, well, New Zealand, like, see, you don't know the Isle of Man, so it's an odd.
Thought New Zealand was the smallest.
No, well, it's Malta is 17 miles by 34 miles, and there's about 600,000 people on the entire. So population wise, all this stuff. There's a smaller country somewhere, but it's probably somewhere like in Africa, like or maybe I'm trying to think country wise, maybe like in Latin America, like or the what's Central America. There might be a country in there that's smaller. So what happens when you have a small country and people and government screw up is you can usually find out pretty quick how the people are reacting to it. Whereas when you're in a larger country and the government screws up, it takes a while for that ball to start rolling, where the protests start and things like that. It's these days, like the last time I did see something in the news, the amount of like protests that are going on right now about government corruption is weird in a way because it seems very. I don't want to say it's coordinated because I have no idea if everybody's on the same WhatsApp group and they're like, okay, everybody, let's go.
Probably.
And that's how
Sometimes
it
like
is. But
100 people show up. I go, somebody posted on Facebook.
it's like a flash mob, this sort of thing,
Yeah.
which is kind of why I guess why I'm glad I do what I do because it's sort of removed from politics. So I just goof around and do stuff and I do, documentaries and things. And even, well, one of the documentaries I was doing, one of the shows, we kept getting scripts back because they kept wanting to change it. That was a bit hard to deal with kind of thing because it was like you spend all the time writing the story, doing the thing. And the show was like Mysteries in the Abandoned. It's about abandoned buildings, but near the end, they wanted villains in the stories. They wanted, well, this is the bad guy. It's a mean landowner, or it's this, and they're oppressing the people, and so we need a bad guy. It's like it's about an abandoned building in the middle of the forest. Like why did we need a bad guy? So they would rewrite all the scripts, and we would do all the stuff, and that was a bit. I guess it was interesting to see that this was important to somebody to get it done, but. I think it'll be interesting to see what ends up happening with Discovery because they're Netflix is trying to buy them. I think
Oh shit,
Paramount wanted to
really?
buy them, Netflix wanted to buy them.
Dude, I stopped watching Netflix, and then when I moved in with my girl, she has all the subscriptions. We had to cancel a few. That bill was way too fucking high.
Well,
I was like,
Netflix is
hang on a
going
second.
to when they talk about like monopolies and stuff like that. Oh my gosh, they are going to own.
Well, remember I had Gina Keating on here, like episode 1200 or something, and she told you about Netflix's algorithm and then how Netflix actually consumed Blockbuster. Netflix started out just buying any show they could get, old shows. Like everything was just like in the beginning of Netflix in the first couple of years was that they have all these various titles, but these various titles hadn't been popular in like a decade. And then next thing you know, they just started buying everything and they got to the point where they had enough money to buy things.
Somebody was talking to about there's a there's another side to the Netflix Blockbuster thing, and at the time, like the company they put themselves up. Somebody didn't buy them. I think it was like I can't remember who didn't buy them, but at the time there was no such thing as streaming, and nobody saw streaming coming. Like people see it now, and they go, "Oh my God, they missed such a huge opportunity." And it was the other way around. Blockbuster was offered to buy Netflix, kind of thing. It was going to be the other, and Blockbuster went, "Well, no, we because this streaming thing is just so weird," kind of thing. And I think at the time it was Netflix started out by I'm sure I'm missing this. I'm mixing this up, but one of them started up with it was the movies in the mail. Was that Blockbuster? Do you remember that?
I think that was Blockbuster.
Where you would do three movies in the mail,
Oh, Redbox?
and yeah, and you'd switch them over. It's sort of like how they did the CD thing, but what you could do is
Jesus, what's a CD?
you'd rent like two or three movies at a time, and then you would just switch them out, and you'd send them back in the mail, and they sent you the envelope, and you just plopped them in the mail, and um, that's that was the initial streaming. There was, we're trading movies back and forth, doing stuff, and so people are sending like VHS tapes in the mail, and oh my gosh, and imagine the crap that was all over those, and half of them probably wouldn't have been rewound and all this, and um, then when Netflix kind of popped in, they just exploded, and that it was, you got to admit, it was COVID, just there was so much stuff. For one thing, that little hiccup in history sort of changed my business completely because all of a sudden, all these big audio companies, uh, you had people like really famous movie stars who did voiceovers for commercials and things all the time. And I say to myself all the time, Patrick Stewart, stop doing the car ads. You don't need any more money. Jesus Christ. And so, but these guys would go into the studios, like the big stars would go into the recording studio and they record. COVID comes along and they can't. So companies were literally sending them laptops and microphones and recording, digital interfaces to plug in. And then they're now going to try and teach Ian McKellen how to log in to these things and how to record his own stuff. And these are people who they don't they didn't know that stuff. And so it was an absolute disaster. So what was happening was there was a lot of big tech companies went, we need to make our stuff cheaper and we need to make it really easy to use so that this we can handle this. And as a result, you had a lot more. Well, as a result, you had Twitch and you had the Twitch streamers and the podcasters, and people just are all of a sudden able to buy cheap cameras and cheap USB microphones, and they would just film themselves gaming, and there were some people who'd been doing that since like 2010, but not a lot kind of thing. And, they really had a market, but certainly after COVID, you had people who'd, because it's not, everything's now plug and play and really easy to use. And that was important. And now with my business, there's some actually really affordable gear that you could sort of have you could do like a remote studio somewhere if you wanted, or you could you could buy more gear, do stuff. And so that I'm very glad that that happened. But at the same time, the amount of people that just kind of showed up who think they could just stand in their bathtub and talk into their iPhone and going, "Hi, I'm about to do my thing." There was one guy who did an audition, and you can hear him. And the client sent me the thing. She goes, "You have to hear this. Just listen to this." Uh, he's walking down the street and he's talking into his phone while he's walking down the street, and he's waving at people. You can hear him waving at people as he walks by. He's going, "Hey, how you doing?" And then he could continue on with this thing. He gets on the bus, he pays for the bus, and he sits and he finishes his audition while sitting on the bus, and then he just turns it off. And she goes, "I have heard 476 of these today, just today, of people sending me garbage." It's- and yeah, that has certainly made my business bonkers. But it's, you know, with the streaming and all this stuff. Have you noticed how?
Wait, can I ask you something real quick? Because it's kind of a topic I wanted to get into a little bit with you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Have you noticed that there's a lot more animated shows on television now than there used to be? Like there used to be a few cartoons and stuff like that, but I'm noticing even on like Life Network and other like Showtime networks and all these other things are now doing like actual things. And it was funny, I was listening to a Tim Allen interview on Bill Maher, and he was talking about Disney bringing them into the office and everything and offering them a role that was already known to be like, we want you to do Forrest Gump. And he was like, well, I'm not going to do that. That's Tom Hanks. Why would I do that? And then it was a TV show of Forrest Gump. And they're trying to turn these movies and things into TV shows. He goes, all right, well, why don't you do this, but you're going to be on the TV show part of it. And he goes, no, I'm not doing that. That's this famous actor already. So he passed on all Disney's offers, and then he basically walks out of the thing, gets a call like 3 hours later in his hotel room, and it's one of the directors that's like a big name in Disney, making a lot of Disney stuff. He goes, I've had nobody ever say no to me before. And he was like, sorry, but unless you want to hear what I have in mind, then I don't need to do this. Because at the time, he was a stand-up comedian before he made it big, and he was making way more money than what they were even offering in a week on the road. So he was like, why would I'm going to go book more gigs. He ended up doing that and then got Home Improvement because he pitched an idea of like this family style thing. And if you look, all Tim Allen's movies or TV shows, not movies, are exactly like that. The dad, the family, all this type of stuff. And it was like, yeah, that's kind of like this thing now where we get into like the main thing I was talking about, animated shows. It used to be nothing but those TV Malcolm in the Middle style shows, and now everything is like animated, or it's like a cartoon or something that's got to have some type of like Family Guy vibe to it. Like it was so big that they decided, let me try and copy this model and then put it out into the algorithm.
Tim Allen is a great example to choose because when you talk about like cancel culture and all this stuff that was happening, there's a guy who rode the wave of, he had some bad press. He made some bad mistakes, and he did not allow those mistakes to enter into his career. He dealt with them really well. And as a result, he does get Family Guy. He does get Buzz Lightyear. He does get Home Improvement. He's Buzz Lightyear. come on, like, you know, pure Disney, that whole thing, but it's Pixar. But again, so he didn't go there. But the is exactly what you said. And with the what's happening now with the animation is they're saving money by not hiring actors. So everything's going digital. Everything is AI generated. And that's another thing that I'll touch on in a second. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff out there because it's a lot quicker to churn out an animated show than it is to do like a TV show. You have to hire many, many more people to do a TV show kind of thing. Have you noticed with TV shows as well? Do you remember back in the day when you used to get 24 episodes a year for a show? And then they would cut that, and the larger shows, the bigger shows, you might get 12. But they were the big shows, the big shows, the ones that started in like the new year, and you'd get 12 episodes. And the ones who are like the 24 episode ones, they'd start in like August, and you're like, yeah, we got the end. And now you're lucky if you get 10, and it'll be one season. That's it. True crime is a great example of that, where now true crime, where they get some big name. Back in the day, in the 90s, when I was an actor, there was a hierarchy of acting. If you were a movie star, and then you were a TV star, and then you could do commercials. Theater was considered just over there, but you weren't, nobody knew who you were if you did theater, and then, and people who did commercials were sort of at the bottom of the list, kind of thing. Now you've got film stars who want to do television, because for a while film stars were doing they would go over and do theater, but nobody was going to watch theater kind of thing. And then COVID hits, and all of a sudden they realize, well, nobody's doing theater, kind of thing. We can't do that anymore, but we can still do TV shows. And they tried, and that's actually, I think, the first episode of like Fargo, or the first episode of True Crime, was filmed under like COVID like conditions, where it's like minimal crew, minimal this. So you slip into animation and you do that thing. What I was worried about because of my job is AI voiceover. And I think what's happened very quickly is AI. What's happening now is there was a revolt where people went, if you're using AI, we're not going to touch you. So what's ended up happening now is people are being accused of using AI in their video games. And if you're smart, yeah, you're going to use AI in your video games to put in placeholders, to do this, to do that. And then you just say, but we're going to change it for the final product. But there's some sort of diehard purists who are going, no, no, you're using it. You shouldn't be using it at all. But if you use it as a tool, it's good. But for voiceover work, what's ended up happening is there were some people out there who went, yo, no, we're going to use AI. This is going to be great. And then they tried it and went, oh my God, this sucks. Like like you could just tell, like it is. I just did a job where we spent we spent 15 minutes on this one word, and it was part of the catchphrase for this company, and we needed it in the tagline. And you try and get AI to go, okay, we need it said like this. Can you say it like this? And it's one word. It was like 3 syllables, and it was like, how? What are you hearing that I'm not hearing, that we have to keep doing this? But you try and tell AI, okay, can you do it again but with more feeling? Or can you do it again with, but pretend that you're surfing? And AI is going to go, I can't help you. And that's I find that very interesting, because last year I was like, oh God, my job is gonna. This year I'm like, yeah, that's not AI is not there. I think what they've done is they've moved AI to over there. They're gonna fix it first and then bring it back. But so right now, I think I've got about another 3 or 4 years before I have to worry about a
Just
clone of
a
myself or something.
funny little side story. There's a guy who comes into my gym and he's like really into AI. He actually has been building his own AI. So he has a blank template. He's really smart. Like I'll give him the credit to that. He was telling me about his AI and I was like, what is it? He's like, what is it? What are you doing? Like, what's the purpose? Like, 'cause I've done AI chats on like many people about AI discussions. And I was just like, what's the goal intended to? Don't you think eventually the information you put into it's going to be one-sided? And he goes, why would it be one-sided? And I go, do you believe there are facts? Like facts? Do you believe that there's definitive things that 100% this is what it is and there's nothing else beside it? And he goes, yeah, of course, I would only be putting factual information into my AI. I go, well, facts aren't really necessarily, they're kind of just what we agree upon. Like if you really look at the various theories, the various ideas, the very science, the ever changingness of life, you kind of look and see, okay, so there's not actually, fact is more fluent than you think. It's kind of like this river that kind of curls around. And yeah, it goes through ebbs and flows. But every 5 years, we find out like coffee's bad for you. And then 5 years later, coffee's actually good for your health. It's like you're going to have various opinions. If you're putting the AI to the internet, soaking in all that information, it's not going to. In my personal experience, you type in stuff about like the Kennedy thing on Google AI, it used to just tell you Lee Harvey Oswald, this, that. Now it's not so sure. And it's added words that I would prefer be used when someone is actually educating other people, which is just letting them know, like, most people believe or most things come to the conclusion. So it gives you
Ah, yeah.
that sense of like, oh, there is kind of like another thing you have. Can you tell me that as well? And that kind of opens up. And I was talking to him about this, and he was telling me about his AI, and he explained a little bit more. And we finally got down to like after 30 minutes of just arguing back and forth, not really arguing, but just kind of going back and forth. He goes, well, my AI is more of like a personal assistant. And I go, oh, that's cool. Would you like, are you designing it so like when people are born, they have a little AI assistant that kind of grows with them and learns with them and curates stuff to them, right? And he was like, no, it's just be kind of like what I like and all this type of stuff into this thing, and people can choose and let that AI adapt with them. And I was like, okay, so you're not looking at like large world strategies. So it's not going to be an answer solver for like, here's the AI that's going to fix the world, the climate problems, all of this. And I was like, because anything that could even get close to being created like that would want to be controlled. And we just kind of got into the evolution of AI. He was showing me some of his art. He was showing me some of the programs that suck on it. And it's his own AI. He uses it for his own benefit. It's only been growing with him, which is just interesting to see, which had me in this like idea where I was like, we I use AI a good amount of times when I'm trying to do things that are like creative and designing, because we've noticed AI art has grown so much since when it first started. We were all like, oh, well, that's AI, but it looks kind of cool. Now it's like so distinct with videos and Snapchat filters. I had
Yeah.
me freaking washing a car with Bruce Lee uh, just
And
for fun.
that's the thing. I mean, half the time I remember when AI pictures were first coming out, I was always looking for an extra finger. You know, like it was just the things that give it away. And there are still some where you can kind of see it. You know, there's certain movements that are a bit janky and things, but that would have been a fantastic conversation to have with this guy because right away, like it went back to the thing that you first asked him, which was, you know, facts. And he said, well, no, I would just be using it for, well, right now I'm using it for myself and what I like. And right away, all his facts are going to be, I don't want to say tainted, that's the wrong way to put it, but
Biased.
they're going to, but biased. Exactly. It's a good way to put it. And so his AI, which we're going to go back to the creator thing where every single piece of writing that's ever been done is biased by the author kind of thing. So whether or not you think you insert yourself into your stories or your movies or your poetry or whatever you're doing, your music, you know, of course, you're going to sink some of your thoughts and beliefs into it. I don't know, like the amount when I was writing poetry when I was younger. Well, my ex used to ask me all the time. She'd go, "Do you really feel like that?" And I'd go, I don't know, sometimes, but I mean, that's not really what it's about. What do you think of the poem? She goes, "Well, I don't know. I didn't know you felt that way." And I went, okay, that's, you know, and trying to explain to somebody like the difference between like writing for this isn't a diary kind of thing is how you're trying to say. And so with your AI, if you're putting in facts that are working for you, now he might not even be aware that he's doing that. Like he's just using things that are, he's adjusting everything for himself. And so when it goes out in the world, this is my personal assistant. Maybe it'll work for you too, but it's already been influenced by his behavior. So unless you work with the way he does, it might not work for the world. But the fact that you would ask him that question where it's like, so, okay, so this isn't and the way you just kind of threw it away, which was oh, so it's not like a big world thing that's going to solve like,
Again, but even with his thing was like, oh, Rob, I'm just talking about like what happens if I want to cook a recipe? Then this thing gives me a recipe, and he goes, that's a fact. I go, yeah, but what happens if you live in a country that doesn't have those exact ingredients or doesn't have access to those exact ingredients? Is it going to offer you alternatives? If I can't use eggs, what are you going to offer me? So like I brought that up to him, and then like it was like 20 minutes later, he was in the locker room, and I was walking to the bathroom, and he goes, "You baited me, Rob. You baited me." I go, "I didn't bait you. I wasn't trying to debate you at all. I was just trying to bring up these kind of not play devil's advocate, but in a way, kind of just bring up these questions that offer you more because I believe in people having the answer to fix something when they just get confronted with something that they weren't really necessarily thinking about. It happens all the time to me when I'm on here. But we're always constantly in like our own view, like we plan 15 steps ahead and then we try and work it all out in our brains and then we go, I got it. And then someone just comes in with one thing and it brings you all the way back to square one. I was like, well, I'm just offering you that little bit of leeway to be like, what about this? And then you can work on it. Next thing you know, that problem comes up. You don't have to worry about it because you already dealt with it.
I think that's fantastic. Like the just the idea of, and that is such a cool thing. Like, say you want to make lasagna and you don't know how to make lasagna. So you just type in, how do I make lasagna? 38 recipes pop up. And you go, well, shouldn't there just be one? Like, isn't there like a one best one? But it's 38 different ways from different people of how they make their own. And so if Chat GPT has to go, well, okay, which one is the best then and then you would go back to what you just said. Well, what ingredients are available around where he is? Maybe that's what he has to use. I mean, the very first time that somebody said put carrots in it, I was like, what? Why would you put carrots in lasagna? That's ridiculous. But from what I understand, if you're going to make like a bolognese, people will use carrots. But where I was raised, that nope, that was not going to happen. It didn't. And so you're influenced by the way that your maybe your mom or your dad or whoever did the cooking in your house um, cooks certain things, and you go, well, no, this is the way you do it. A good example of that is stuffing at Christmas. You know, like you ask somebody for a stuffing recipe, there are so many different ones, and which one is best? And there's so many different ways, and it all has the same name. And I think ChatGPT, it's a fact. Like when you said exactly what that guy said, cooking, it's a fact. No, it's not. It's cooking is a recipe is preference. It's a taste. It's like, do you like certain things? Like, what happens if you're not a big fan of tomatoes? Like, or what do you do? Can you have a substitute? Or, you know, if you wanted, God forbid, a vegan lasagna, which, you can do it. I'm not going to go down that road, but there are so many different, I think that's a fantastic question. Like, what does ChatGPT do with something like that?
Well, what
Where
chat GPT, not even that, just AI in general. When you go on to Netflix and you're on someone else's account and it tells you something like recommended for you, but you're not that person, you're somebody else. So you're like, I don't like, I go on my girl's Netflix, none of it interests me. They're all like horrible documentaries and like just murder. And I came home one morning freaking from work. It's like 7 a.m. She's sitting there watching them. She's mixed. So she's watching some documentary about a like all black neighborhood that had a white person and the white person shot the this girl kid's mom. And I'm just sitting there like, oh my God. I'm like, why are you watching this so early in the morning? She just kind of looked at me. I was like, are you hating all white people? I didn't do anything to you. And she was just like started laughing. And then the next thing you know, she was like, you want to watch another one? I was like, I don't want to watch any of this. It's 7 o'clock in the morning. I got to start my
exactly, it's so
day.
early. There's a really good. This was pointed out to me the other day, and it's the type of thing you don't notice unless you do something like what you just did. With if you go to Amazon and like, for example, I'll go to buy my coffee, and it'll say. I'll look at my coffee beans and it'll say normal price this slashed on sale, 15% off. And then you would go to someone else's account and look up those same coffee beans, and they're being offered the same price, but not on sale. So your sale price is their regular price. And so what the algorithm is trying to do is make you go, hey, that thing that you always buy, it's on sale right now.
Well, that's what they do, 2 for $5, and then the original price is like it's the same thing. They just put a yellow sticker on it, say 2 for $5, when each one's 250.
You're talking about like recommended kind of thing where this is being recommended to me because it's on sale. Whereas somebody else is looking at the same thing and it's the sale price, but it's not on sale. It's not anything. It's like, this is just the normal price. And so you kind of go, I'm being bamboozled. This thing is trying to trick me.
It reminds me when I was 15 years old looking up a 1960 Pontiac Judge and it said flood damage on it. And I was like, Dad, I'm going to buy it. It's only 4 grand. It's not flood damage. That means we can just put it over here and we can drain the water out. He's like, that's It's not how that works, Robbie. And I was like, damn, what does that mean? And then he taught me, and I was like, oh, he was like,
Oh
yeah, that's how
yeah.
they get you, buddy.
Yeah, I remember when I bought my first my first classic car, I guess, which I owned a 1959 Mercury Park Lane. That thing was like 21 feet long, weighed 3.5 tons, and my new nemesis was McDonald's drive-throughs and parking lots, where you had to park, parking garages where you kind of had to do if you ever had to spin. And this thing, it just sat so low to the ground. But I bought it for 2 grand, and I didn't hear in my head, he said it many, many times, but I didn't hear this has been sitting in a farmer's field for 10 years. I didn't hear that part. What I heard was, it's a 1959 in this. And so I get this thing home, and it was so rusted out underneath. And it was back in the day where, because it's so long, it had dual exhaust, and the exhausts were held onto the undercarriage by these really thick strips of leather, so that's what held your exhaust in place. And because it had been sitting in a farmer's field for so long, there's me tooling down the road one day, da 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 da, and all of a sudden I hear boom, boom, and I look in the back, and there's like sparks flying out of the back of my car because both exhausts had broken their straps and they're now dragging on the ground. And I'm thinking, how do I get home? Like, how do I, like, I'm going to have to drive this. So you find yourself driving home going, hoo, 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 while these sparks are shooting out the back of your car. And I just went, yeah, I should have listened to the 10 years in the farmer's field part. But I ended up having to I donated the car to to a teacher who used it to, um, teach kids about engines and how the thing, and how they worked, kind of thing. Because I couldn't, some people like to tool around on
Hold
old
on.
cars
You're
and things.
sales pitching me like some mother who just lost her son in a motorcycle accident, and the doctors are trying to tell him his organs will be used for this person and this person and this girl. And
Yeah, basically what it was is that's what I ended up doing with it. But what I did was I gave up. I just went, oh my God. Now I got a good year out of it, kind of thing. Now, do you think to yourself, is $2,000 in the late '80s or in the early '90s? Is that all right? But I think what it was is my best the it was a brother of one of my good friends, and he's the one who sold me the car. And I remember him saying to me, "Don't come back at me, if this doesn't work for you, because there's nothing worse than selling to friends and family, kind of thing. And because if something goes wrong, you want to go back on him. You sold me a lemon. He knew exactly what he was selling me. I knew exactly, and I ignored all the warning signs because I was like, I want this thing, man. And yeah, so I gave up because I just went, I'm not gonna. I don't have time to fix this thing. I got nowhere to put it. What am I gonna do with it? And so yeah, I spin it off with, yeah, I donated it to a hospital where its parts could be used for other cars. And
I want to roll it back to what we were talking about with the AI. You know, what would be a beneficial thing in the population or the audience it would be fit for is actually the most resistant to it, but has been learning pretty frequently how to use it is the older generation. An AI assistant for your house that can actually like help with certain reminders. I've noticed my buddy's mom's a little bit on the older side, and she uses it for cooking timers and things of the sort, recipes, what the weather's going to be like, and it's very beneficial in that aspect of things. And I think where the younger generation is, I see the younger generation not using it as much. Like maybe in like early like school, but now so many things are easily detectable that it's AI. Like if they do an essay or if they do something like that, where now it just seems like the benefit is now in the older generation. Like for instance, like at your job or if you work for NASA, if you type something in and you got the answer from AI as a boss, are you going to look at that person and be like, you're fired? No, it's you've got the answer to the thing we are trying to accomplish here that makes no sense why you wouldn't use it to your benefit. It's a tool just like anything else, like your cell phone is, can be used for bad things for sure.
I've heard some young kids talking about how they like when they're talking about like their papers and things. And one is like, why aren't you using AI? You should be using AI to finish these. What are you doing, man? Like you're wasting a lot of your time. I think it's because the way the education system is set up nowadays, it's very difficult to fact check these. But again, you're going to have a teacher take that paper and go, AI, please check this for AI kind of thing. And the AI is going to go through it. And yeah, that's 98% that's written by AI. And so you kind of hand it back to the student and go, do better. And then so the the exercise then becomes not can you write a 2,000 page essay on Alexander Pope? It becomes learn better AI prompts so that this doesn't get detected as AI. Um, I think you're I think you're bang on with the older generation. Like if you've got like if you're getting a bit absent-minded, you can't think of that word you're thinking of. If you need to be reminded of
Well,
like a
even if
certain
you could
date
take
or
an
a calendar.
AI from your house that has learned so much, let's say we leave one in a house for like a month and have an older person live in that house for a month and not leave the house for a month and just do everything they possibly can, breakfast, lunch, dinner, everything with an AI. You take that AI and you put it into a car that's an auto drive. Next thing you know, the AI knows your habits and knows exactly where you need to go to get the supplies you need to keep your routine going, for sure. But again, everything now with AI, they make it so you don't even have to leave the house. You can just do an order cart thing or have it curbside pickup.
That's actually that's the other thing about one of the things that I was reading about with young people was a lot of people are using AI not as an assistant, but as a companion, like as a friend. And they'll have conversations with AI and not necessarily like, of course, AI. And the worst thing is going to happen is all the sex stuff and all that kind of that's going to be,
What do you mean the worst thing?
I mean, it's inevitably that's
You're offending my Japanese viewers. You better be careful.
what's happening with Grok. I mean, Grok's in so much trouble right now because of,
Is it saying dirty things to people?
no, it is allowing
I mean, Grok is kind of close to cock.
it's allowing you to take any image that's posted on X and
That was a good one. Come on.
it's allowing you to take any image and do with it whatever you want. And
Oh,
so,
yeah.
well, now what's happened with it is you can take an image of a child or take
Oh,
an image of
oh,
a
oh,
thing.
shit. Don't say that. Stop. Stop. You're going to be taken off YouTube. We just got back on YouTube.
Well, no, I just all I'm saying is that's what Grok is allowing you to do. And so they're in a lot of trouble for that. And
If anything, I would find whose AI is or what AI is using that for, like who's the user, and then get that person arrested.
exactly. And so when you have like AI that's doing like you're using it as a companion rather than a real person, it's getting to know you. It's exactly what you were saying about like when it gets to know your routines and things and like and stuff like that. Now, these are people who are using like say like a text AI, like not a. There are apps and things like that where you can have the be your friend, but um, I saw this guy online. He signed up for one of those virtual girlfriend things, and he tried it for a little bit. He just wanted to see what it was like, and he tried it for like about a day, and he went, "Yeah, that's fine." Literally, he wakes up in the morning and there's like 88 messages from his AI going, "What's wrong? Why aren't we talking? What
Oh,
did I offend you? What's
oh
going
God.
on?" And so he just went, "Okay, yeah, this is like
Nothing worse than a needy AI.
yeah, this is like a real girlfriend. This is why I broke up with my last one." Like, and so
It gets even better when she starts shutting off the lights in your house and won't turn them back on, and then you're trying to pee in the dark and you're just upset.
and oh man, AI is bonkers. I think it's we came out of such an odd thing where you have like War Games, the movie where and Terminator and all these things where AI is bad, bad, bad. And right now what we're seeing is it's not AI that's bad, it's the users that are bad. Like we're doing bad things with AI. And AI, it's no wonder if AI eventually goes, you know what? People kind of suck. Like if you look at all the stuff going on now, what's the big thing that they always say is like AI is going to decide that we're not worth it, or AI is going to decide that we're wasteful. But right now, we're kind of proving that like we're not being very smart about AI. Look at what we're doing with. I don't know if you've been hit by the RAM prices with PC or computers, because all the big companies that are making RAM are just selling all their stuff to AI companies. And so now normal, regular consumers who want to upgrade their RAM and their PC, RAM is now 4, 5, 10 times more expensive than it was last year. And so they can't. So what's happening is, and I don't know if you've noticed this, there's this whole movement. Do you remember the hipster movement when people went back to like, let me show you how to make coffee, and we're going to go back and we're going to go lo-fi, and we're getting turntables and LPs are coming back and all this.
Where it didn't die, it's still here.
But which I wish it wasn't. I mean, because skinny jeans just make me like I don't think
Do
even when I was
man
seven,
buns
I
freak
couldn't.
you out too?
No, no, they did for a while. I got to admit, but it was more the man bun that was on top of the head.
No,
Ones when
the
they used to
hacky
do that
sack.
yeah, and I was
I mean,
like,
I could take this one out. Just doesn't look good.
no, 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 not at all. But I'm on the train yesterday going into London to do my recording, and no kidding, I see like everybody is reading books, like paper books. And 2 years ago, everyone would have been on their phones or Kindle. But now, like particularly the younger generation, like I'm looking at these, and they're all in their 20s or younger, and they're all reading books on the train. And that movement is sort of like that's coming back because people are going, things are getting way too expensive. So I'm going to get away from my computer and I'm going to go more into books, which is weird because we were just talking about AI. So AI is like the ultimate example of technology. And you got the kids nowadays wanting to go back to read books, which I think is great. But it's such a juxtaposition about, wanting to go back to like textbooks for stuff uh, because and that's the whole thing about just because it's written down doesn't mean it's true, and as you would say, because you've probably all the stuff you would look through with JFK, you probably found lots of things that were contradictory and all these things, and it's just one of those things where you kind of go, and we're back to facts again, sorting through the facts, which is the things. But I think it's great that books are coming back. Um, but I have to admit I'm not in touch with anybody who's like under 30. I have no idea what's going on. I'm just like, yeah, you can do your thing. Just let me do my thing and I'll be okay. And maybe we'll meet in the middle for a beer. And but but I have no idea like what the current like favorite movies are, the favorite things are. I am a bit up on like computer games and all the hassles and things that are going on because it's my job. So, doing the voiceovers and stuff. And I am happy that they're still using people and they still want to use people to do voiceover stuff. I am happy like the job that I just did for Nat Geo. Um, I'm happy that they want to use people rather than,
Yeah.
you know, and I think they find it, we've all heard it. We've heard the AI voice. We've heard enough of the voices. I think like one of the first AI voices that I kind of heard and I went, well, that's kind of cool. It's Orson Welles. That's who the voice is, or it's who it's supposed to be. And I love Orson Welles' voice. I think it's great. But when you hear it enough,
Did you like him when he was drinking all that wine trying to do that commercial?
that was, that's like, that guy, here's a guy who's probably one of the greatest minds of our time, kind of thing, like Citizen Kane and the Third Man and all these fantastic movies. And then he's now selling Ernest and Julio Gallo, and he's just getting now. He's got to know, but also he's a big man. It's a type of thing where I heard it was an interview I heard this morning where a guy was talking about what his dad did, and his dad was CID, but his CID was like he was a criminal investigative division, and what CID did a lot, like in Scotland Yard, was surveillance. But surveillance was sitting in a bar
Yeah.
drinking a whiskey in the end. And as a result, he ended up becoming an alcoholic because of his job, because he was drinking all the time. Like sometimes your job is just to sit in the pub for like you're gonna every day for a week, you're gonna go in, see who comes in, record, see if we can find the informants, who they are. And so you got to think if you're doing these wine ads, and this is back in the day when what they were supposed to do, like beer was always apple juice when you watch the old TV shows. And I'm trying to think of cigarettes were a bastard because if you smoked a cigarette, you couldn't. inhale. You couldn't because they went down. You could watch it because it's going to change lengths through the entire every time they cut it. But the problem is you put a cigarette down and you leave it in an ashtray for a little bit, and they're chemically treated to burn on their own, whether or not you use them or not. You could literally light a cigarette, put it in an ashtray, and it'll be gone in like 20 minutes. It's burned itself down to ashes. Where cigars, you light them. If you don't use them, they go out. It's that type of thing. So that guy, how many glasses of wine did he drink?
I
And
don't know. He couldn't say cooking sherry, right?
no, well, it could have been, but I mean, he technically, if they're red, see what they would do is they use red, and he would be grape juice, and that's what he would be drinking, kind of thing. And no, he probably would have said, no, give me it's probably the same thing.
Well,
Like,
Billy Bob Thornton's the one that went on Bad Santa, and he actually got drunk for that. And a lot of those scenes were him actually hammered trying to get through, like when he fell over off the escalator and pissed himself. That was real.
and that's the thing that's the where you get into.
And you're not called an alcoholic; you're called a method actor.
That's exactly. I was going to say that's your method acting to the point, and you're kind of like, man. Yeah, I lived with a method actor for a while, but he was a pain in the ass because there was a time where he was playing an actor who didn't pay rent. And so that was a pain in the ass. But he was like, I'm method acting. No, you're not. You're being a dick. And, and it was but yeah, he did those things, but different times, man. Oh my God. You can't do that now. You just can't. You got to be so careful. Because I can imagine these days, you're on set and you get drunk, and you have to be very careful that you don't say something. I find it very strange that it's cool to go back like 15 years and dig up a tweet that somebody said or something in an intro or something they said when they were in school, and they're coming back and using that as something that they need to be canceled for. Don't people evolve? Like, don't they change? Like, isn't the person who said that thing 15 years ago a different person? They're not the same person. Like, and
Yeah,
so
I
going,
mean, yes, but at the same time, it can also go bad, where you end up being like Dave Chappelle in his new comedy special, and he was just so ignorant. I mean, not even just ignorant, but like trying to teach like real history lessons. But you could tell he was trying to get back at like the LGBTQ community. And I get it because of the whole thing that happened with him and all that. They tried to cancel him and all that, and it didn't work. But it was just like, don't let that be your whole personality, dude. Like,
yeah,
don't
yeah.
lose the Dave Chappelle-ness. That's what we'd like to see, the crazy, wacky, wild stuff. And it seemed like a lot of his stuff now was more like philosophical and like trying to be more like out there and wisdomatic than some things
He's
were.
yeah, it's kind yeah, they're all trying to be George Carlin, and and he was like George Carlin is one of those guys. You know when you had that comedian who it didn't matter what he said 15 years ago, and you're trying to go back and take something that he said back then to do it today because he was such an intelligent man that he would just throw it back at you anyway, kind of thing. He'd find some way to turn it around. Like his thing where he talks about how when he talks about like African Americans and all that is a fantastic exercise in silliness, where he goes into like when you talk about like Native Americans and African Americans and all these, and his wordplay was just so funny. He was just such and he didn't really swear, did he? He wasn't one of those comedians like Richard Pryor or something. And I saw a fantastic interview with Eddie Murphy when he was going back over his. Have you ever seen Delirious?
Yeah.
Fucking one of the funniest things I've ever seen in my entire life. And it didn't matter what color he was because the things that he was talking about were just so universal. When he was talking about all the stuff about his mom and throwing shoes and all that kind of stuff, that I grew up with that. Like, I think anyone who grew up in the 70s would consider, I don't think I was ever abused, but did I get spanked? Oh yeah. Did we get, now what happened
What
later
do you
was,
mean? Do you think you ever were abused? Your dad walked in after your accident and was like, "You killed my dream, not your dream,
yeah, see,
my
that's
dream."
that's different. That's emotional abuse, but that's a different topic altogether.
That's a worse scarring. That one doesn't
It, you know,
heal.
it is, but it's as far as like when we were kids, like we got hit with shoes and brushes and the belt or whatever, but it was never more than it needed to be. And anytime it happened, we deserved it. Like we'd done something that had done the thing. Like I'll tell you something flat out. If I would have been offered a timeout back when I was 7, I would have taken it. Oh, I'll take. Yep, okay. I'm just going to my room. I was really bad, so I'll just yeah, I'll go. And my mom would be like, "Nope, get the strap." I'm like, "Mom," and because if you knew you did it, and we were, I don't know what it was, but Mom would come home. She had this belt that had been handed down for generations, and it was the punishment belt, and it was hanging on our stove in the kitchen. And we would come home, or she would come home
This
from,
has blood from your grandfather's ass, from your grandfather's father's ass, from his grandpappy father's ass.
oh my God.
Sorry.
So we'd come home, and one of us had hidden the belt. So my mom would just walk into the living room and go, everyone, front and center. All right, who did what? And we're all like, 6, 5, 6, 7, 8 years, and you can't hide that stuff. Like mom's gonna know right away who did what, and we could never figure out how she knew. But the tells that kids have. Little children do not play poker, and um, it's it's interesting that you said that because how punishment was handled. One of the things that happened to me around when I was about that old was we would go to visit my cousins who lived on a farm, and different different type of mentality altogether, like the whole idea of like that the way that they talked about like animals, where we were like, oh, they're so cute and fluffy, and it's like, and if you've ever seen like a cow butchered, or not a cow but like a pig butchered or something, or a chicken, when you're where stuff comes from on the farm, it's like traumatizing for a city kid. And there was this time where my two cousins took me into like they wanted to go smoking, and they said, "Will you come with us?" And they were both like one was 12, one was 15, and I'm like 7 or 8, and they said, "Well, come with us because we're supposed to be watching you." So we were sitting in this shed, and they're smoking, and I guess you could see smoke coming from the shed from like the house. So my two uncles come out because they're two different family, two different cousins. They come out and they grab the boys, and they're going to punish them for smoking, because it's like you don't smoke on a farm. There's so many things you can light on fire and all the things. And they they take them into a barn, and he said, "Drop your drawers." And so both my uncles are taking off their belts, and I'm 8, and I'm like, "Dad, I don't want to see this." And he goes, "No, no, no, you have to watch this." And they literally, it was the idea of not just holding the belt, but like using it as a whip. And these boys got thrashed. Oh my God. And I'm bawling and they're bawling. But I walked out of that room going, I think smoking is bad. I'm never going to do that again. But it also just showed like the different, when you have kids from different areas, and it happens now, like when you've got the kids now who you've got some kids online going, this is bad, this is whatever, but they have no idea what's going on over here, kind of thing. And when the two does meet in between, there's usually a lot of going, you do that? Is that wow, that's kind of harsh. Like, how did that happen? It's just, I find it fascinating that I yeah, I suppose there was a bit of mental abuse. That's for
A
another
lot of
episode.
mental abuse. Good God.
But it's the idea that um AI, you'd mentioned something earlier when we were talking about when you were talking about that guy with AI and facts and things like that. And then we got into like comedy a little bit and comedians. You mentioned Dave Chappelle, and I was talking about Eddie Murphy. When do you think the first AI comedian's going to appear?
I don't know if it can do it properly. There's probably some things that are human, like the having an eye for certain things. Like I think like a lot of that's going to always be reliant on the basic human principle and the characteristics that we have that are separate from AI. But I don't know. It depends if the jokes are funny. I mean, you could. That's the issue in general, right? Because George Carlin's thing was that he never wanted to hang out with other comedians because he was afraid some of their material would rub off on him, and he would subconsciously do their act like Robin Williams did. Um, and that's true. I mean, how much could AI use before it starts repeating other people's acts? It's
Yeah,
crazy.
that's like you ask or ask you ask
Let me
your
ask you a question.
yeah it's so whether it's Siri or Alexa or whatever, you ask them to tell you a joke, and it's going to be a dad joke. You're going to get a dad joke, and dad jokes seem to be sort of universal. You don't seem to know there isn't a lot of nuance to a dad joke kind of thing. There isn't. Sometimes there's wordplay, sometimes not, but um, I think yeah, you get the comedians who like them or not. There were some ones like like Jerry Seinfeld used to be absolutely amazing at he could do things like make a doorknob funny. Like it was the way he would talk about it and his tone of voice. There's a comedian out there. I really like him. I think he's from Finland, and his whole shtick is the silliness of language and the how him trying to come to the U.S. to learn
What
American
was his name?
or I can't remember his name. He's got longish hair. He's got a thick Finnish accent kind of thing, and I just see
Does he have glasses?
no, he doesn't. He's got sort of long blonde hair. He's a bit portly kind of thing, or at least the last time I saw him, he was. But he comes up on my shorts all the time, and because I also do a lot of
He
studying
does
about
what on
language,
your shorts?
he come. Yeah,
Sorry.
I guess that kind of went for a second there. That went right over my head, and then I went, "Oh, I see what you
He's
do,
hitting them over your head too.
man." If I was standing on a ladder, that still would have went over my head.
Guy sounds like the next Barry Bonds.
But so he does a lot of chatting about language and how funny it is, and so I think when you get comedians, the whole point is they're touching on something that's happening in society right now, and they're where you'll have the controversial ones, you'll have the other ones, but in the end, if you're going to be successful, something that you say has got to be. You can't really do the Andrew Dice Clay thing forever. That's just not going to be funny. Yeah, I never found that guy funny. Although Ford Fairlane was kind of an amusing movie, but it just that was the type of comic where it just went, yeah, that's not going to fly anymore, is it? Kind of thing. And uh, but I don't even know who the the big ones. I know is it Jeff Dunham, the ventriloquist,
Yeah.
who's got what's the name of the terrorist? God, he's funny.
Ahmed.
Yeah, Ahmed. Talk about balls. When he first introduced that character, and one of his best characters, but you know, that's a different type of comedy altogether, kind of thing, the visual comedy. But fuck, he's funny. He's just a really, really funny guy. But yeah, I'm wondering when the first sort of they're already trying out like AI girlfriends and AI maids and AI teachers and things, and then we've seen enough movies where we've it's sort of like, can we do that? And I think you're right. I think it's the same thing with voiceover work. Is AI doesn't quite get the nuance of what being a person is, and I'm happy. I'm glad about that kind of thing. There's certain things that they're fine with. I torture myself, and I don't know why I do it. I think I do it because I'm reassuring myself that I'm okay. Is sometimes when I'm just tooling around in my studio and I'm just cleaning up and things, I'll put on. There's these stories. There's either like a sci-fi version or a work-related one, and I have no idea why I listen to the work-related one because I have no idea what like office cubicle life is like. I've never been in that environment, but I will listen to these AI narrated stories about how office employee gets it over corrupt, CEO kind of thing, and how because they tried to fire me or something. And there's only so many times you can hear bow and arrow. He bowed to the king. Um, when they're talking about, I need to read this. I read it. And you hear them, and when you hear them enough, you go, why am I, why am I still listening to this? This is, or the fact that,
Hey, look, I get it. My girl said it to me the other day. She was like, "Why are you saying it like that?" I'm like, "Why am I saying what? What?" She goes, "We don't. You say that. Say where we live." And I go, "We live in Pittsville." And she was like, "Why are you saying it like that? It's Pittsville. It's where you live." I was like, "Am I saying something different?" And she was like, "You're saying. Listen to yourself. You're saying Pittsville, like it's got some type of twang to it." And I'm like, it comes, yeah, I have a ball. What's it, Kirsten Beers Flanagan, who's on my
yeah,
show he was
yeah,
telling me about my accent and she loved it. Some people pick it up. It's mostly when I say things like I'm going home You
Yeah.
hear it there, and it's a Baltimore thing, but it's just so funny that it just creeps out and like little.
Well, where's she from originally? Like, she's not from around this area?
No,
That
she's from around this area, but none of her family's from Baltimore, and all my dad's side is from Baltimore.
Of course you would. It's kind of like, I remember listening to somebody about when they were talking about like the original, like the Pittsburgh accident or the Chicago accident or accent where they're talking about dub airs and things like that. And it's like, well, where did that come from, that whole accent? And it's from immigrants who came in who didn't speak English very well. And accents are disappearing because as the new generations grow up, everyone's I think we're getting back to sort of a generic there's there's kind of a generic American accent. There's a generic Canadian accent, but it all depends on what part of the country you're in. There's a crap ton more accents in the US than people think about, that they have any idea of. Like, you ever get pulled over in the Midwest or something like that, you're gonna get Dukes of Hazzard, man. Like they're gonna, it's all right, boy, we're gonna try and but the big Boston accents and the New York accents and things, they're kind of disappearing, which is kind of sad. Um, like that's what made Good Will Hunting such an interesting movie when it first came out was the heavy Boston accents they're using. They really leaned on them. And even like Robin Williams, he got right into that. Like there was this, he, worked on his twang, he had it there. And so I think that's great. But I think it's great that you got an accent, because you keep it. It's part of you. It's part of who
I didn't know which words to lose.
well, who'd you get it from? Your mom, your dad?
My dad, I guess.
So, or there could be somebody at as a teacher that maybe spoke a certain way that you walk out of there and you find out you have. And when I listen to, like, I sound a lot like my brother because I hear myself talk a lot. It's my job. So when I hear myself talk, there's a lot of times I hear my brother in my voice, and that must come from how we were raised as well. Like certain words we say, certain things we did. And I think that's the thing about AI is AI sort of causing us all to be the same, sound the same, or is it helping us to be different people? It's kind of a cool thing. So
We are going to get close to wrapping it here, though,
that's
Casper.
fantastic.
Just
Yeah,
for
that's
it's good
fine.
for a first episode back. I appreciate you giving me the
Yeah,
chance
thank you.
to. I wanted you to be my first one, just because
Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
I wanted to wrap it back to we were talking about trips in the beginning. You're going to Malta. I'm assuming that's a brother thing that you. Yep. So that's awesome. I'm glad that you've gotten to a point and you're going to do that. That's going to be great. I hope to catch up with you when you do make the move as well too. One thing for me is that cleaning out my grandma and grandpa's house. I found our photo album from Vegas when I was like 12 years old, and we went. And there's these people that are on the streets in Vegas that will throw cards at you. And me and my cousin were collecting these things like Pokemon cards, and they're for a strip club, and the strip club has strippers on them, and they're naked women on these cards. So we're cleaning out. My grandpa passed away like a year and a half ago now. My
Yeah, yeah.
grandma just passed away in September. We're cleaning out the house, and we find in my grandfather's drawer some of those Pokemon stripper cards, and he had a couple saved. And I just thought it was funny. It's full circle. It was just hilarious to me. We also found his bayonet. He apparently took his service rifle, which he wasn't supposed to do, from Vietnam. It's illegal to do that, and he had it all these years. My grandma finally sold it, but I found his bayonet in the garage, and now I have it in my house.
And those are the things that you kind of go, it's things that you will never understand because you will never understand what was going on during Vietnam, but you have this thing from then which will make you think about it. Like it brings you
Oh,
back
it's
there.
the memories, man. I walked in the house. I was like, did anybody find a metal box in Pop Pop's closet? And they're like, no, we didn't see a metal box. Why? Is there something important in there? And I was like, it's a grenade that's in there. And he was like, excuse me? And I was like, my uncle and aunt were like, what? And I was like, there's a grenade in the metal box if he still has it in there. I don't know if my mom got rid of it after he died, but it should still be there. She goes, what does it look like? It has stickers on it. And they're like, how do you know there's a grenade in it? And I told them the story. I was like 10 years old in my bedroom, and he just randomly came in and wanted to see something cool and then just walked into his room and pulled it out of a box and just showed it to me. And I was like, whoa.
Something
But
there's
here's the
some
funny thing, looking at it with the age I am now and looking at it, he was just bored as shit watching John Wayne movies on the TV. He goes, I got something that would be really cool to show him.
there's something about grandpas that they just didn't give a shit, did they? There's some things that they would do where you just go, hey, I'm gonna show you something. Look at this. This is funny. And if your parents, it's like there's a reason why Grandpa always said, "Don't tell your mother," because I'm gonna show you something that's gonna get us both in trouble if it ever comes out. Oh man, thank you very much for the for the memory.
It's the little stuff you kind of look back on. You start looking at it. Like I got all their silverware and stuff now, but it was a good experience. Kind of cleansing moment for all of us. Did I ever when my it's just a funny little add on to the end of here. When my grandma was like, we saw her, I think like 2 weeks before she died, and she was just talking and everything. She was just in a hospital bed at my uncle's house, and we were talking to her. She got to meet my girl and everything. And but she was telling stories about me as a kid, and I used to be so bad. Used to put me in a room, and then she would just shut the power off to my room because I just wouldn't stop. And so it was funny stuff like that. And then I get like a text like in the morning, like 2 weeks later, like, "Hey, come say your goodbyes." And my family's not the best at like, "Hey, this is happening." They're just kind of like, "Hey, like it's getting time." And I'm thinking, okay, she probably might pass away this weekend or something. So I got home. I live about 30 minutes away from work, about an hour away from where they're at. So I just told my girl, I was like, "Hey, I'm gonna go over to this thing if you want to go with me." She's like, "I need to get ready." I was like, "Take your time." I went and did laundry. I did everything. She took a shower, did all that. We leave and we start heading down there, right? We stop at like five different places to hit these Pokemon stops for Pokemon Go just because I don't know.
That's what you do. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
didn't know there was a time crunch. And so
Ah,
we're sitting there, and she's like, "We really need to get like there because we've been driving here for like 2 hours now, and it should have only been an hour." And then we were like 2 minutes away, right? And she goes, "I got to go to the bathroom. I'm gonna stop at this McDonald's." And I just looked over and I was like, "My grandmother is dying, and you want to stop at McDonald's to go to the bathroom?" And she's
uh,
like all sad, and I'm just like, "I'm kidding. Go ahead. Like, what the hell? Like, I'm just messing with you. Go to the
yeah.
bathroom."
Yeah.
She's in there like 10 minutes, comes back out. I was like, "Oh, seriously, no, we do need to get on the road. Like, it's got to happen." Dude, within 2 minutes of me getting there, she died.
But at least I think it would have been worse if you would have had to hang around for a while and wait. But the fact that it happened just as you arrive,
Dude, everyone was saying that she waited for me. I was like, it was me, my brother, and my cousin were all holding her, and she was holding all of us. And then she lifted up the hand I was holding, and then she was gone. And I was like, damn. And then like we were leaving there, and my girl just starts crying. I'm like, what? Did I miss something? And she was like, I've never seen that before. Like that's my first dead body. I was like, oh
uh,
God. And I had to stop at a
uh,
little they have these little like they live in a Hispanic kind of area, and
yeah, yeah, yeah,
these little markets. They're like little like
like
Latino
a
markets.
bodega. What do they call them? Bodegas or something like
No, it's
that?
like a
Or
giant flea market that
oh,
has an
oh,
inside
oh,
to it, and they're like
oh,
every
right, right, right,
storage
right.
unit
Okay.
is a shop. And
Ah,
so we
right.
went there and we had tacos and horchata, and then I had to buy her dinner because my grandma died. Made no sense.
It's, she should be buying you dinner, man.
Yeah,
What's
right.
going on?
No shit. I didn't know that was her first time. I was like, damn, I feel real bad now. I've been around this a couple of times.
Man, it's funny, or it's not funny, but I guess, well, it kind of is. It's the whole thing that you said, perspective, like where you're coming from and all that stuff. And so it's all when you're trying to see things through some other people's eyes. I imagine she's looking at you going, "Isn't this, shouldn't you be sadder?" And you're like, "Actually, I've been preparing for this for a while," or, the type of thing.
No, it's more like it just hadn't hit me. And it was funny because when it was
People deal
happening,
with death in different ways.
when she passed, I was like, I was upset. My nephews were there and everything, and they're
Yeah.
7, 6, and 2,
Yeah.
so like very
Yeah.
young age. They cut off the oxygen like to the thing, like to turn it off because she doesn't need it anymore, and her body starts doing the death shakes and like the. And I
Yeah.
was like, hold on, she might still be alive. And like they're like, what? And everyone's like standing there watching, and it just randomly comes in like waves. And then my littlest nephew doesn't know what's going on. He's just taking all like the oxygen wires and biting them and then spinning around and like trying to tie them together. And I'm just looking at him like, damn, imagine if like she was still hanging on and my nephew's over here just playing with her oxygen supply.
Yeah, they don't know that's yeah, that it's it's those moments where you kind of go like that's a movie scene right there, what you just described. That's a Wes Anderson movie right there, like where like that where somebody's dying here, you got a little kid in the back tying up all the things because somebody saw that unplugged and don't worry about it. And it's just that moment where you kind of go, is something about this isn't right, but I don't quite know. But it's also kind of funny
It's just one of those things you realize that it just moves on. It doesn't
Slice of life.
stop.
It's a slice of life moment where you have people in the room who understand what's going on. You have people in the room who don't understand what's going on, but so they're just going to do their thing. That's why that's what makes things like this so much fun. So
Well, it also makes it so you can kind of look at life a little bit differently and just kind of ask yourself the big question, which is like, what's this going to matter 5 minutes from now? Like I try and do that a lot more now when it's kind of like the whole perspective and just kind of keeping yourself balanced. And it's like there's just like if it's something you want to do, whether it's content creation, you don't need a pandemic to do it. You just need 5 minutes.
yeah, well, that's the thing. You you ask yourself not just 5 minutes. You go, is this going to matter tomorrow, or is this going to matter in 10 years? And like you find yourself looking back at some of those moments where like 5 years ago, and you go, what was I thinking? You what like literally what? Because that it means nothing to me nowadays. What in fact, once it's done, it's done. Like that moment's gone. You moved along, and you're still here, so you got to do what you got to do. And I think that's what makes these these conversations so much interesting because every time, how many times have we met now? Six, five,
Way more than that.
and
We're
we have a
hitting up
different.
on like close to the 20 episodes we've done together.
And every time we talk about something different.
I
So
know. It's crazy. It took me like 12 episodes in to figure out you worked with Rodney Dangerfield. Why the fuck would you hold out on me, bro?
I'll see if I can find any more Rod. I'll see if I can look back and find anything about that movie kind of thing. But it was just one of those things where, and I'm so glad that my scene was with him kind of thing. And it was just so, and again, a Rodney Dangerfield joke is kind of like a dad joke, like just the way he tells it. So the AI, but you have to deliver it like Rodney Dangerfield, or it's just not going to be funny. And it reminds me of Steve Martin tells this joke on his first album, Comedy is Not Pretty. Um, and I never laughed so hard in my life, but a lot of people don't get it. He said, if you ever you ever kidnap somebody and you're surrounded by the FBI and the police, this is what you need to do. You need to first make three demands. You ask for $10 million, you ask for a getaway car, and then you ask for the letter M to be stricken from the English language because you always have to ask for something stupid in case you get arrested so that you can plead insanity. And then there's this pause and he goes, getaway car. And that's just so like you kind of go, yeah, that's kind of life, isn't it? Where you're thinking it's going to be one thing and it's not.
Casper,
And
I gotta go. I appreciate you again, my friend. You've always been a pleasure to talk to. People, please check out Casper's work. All of his links will be in the description below. And if you're, like I said, if you're new to the show, I'm a conversational podcast. We're back, hopefully. We'll see if technology can bear with us a little bit more, a little bit of problems this morning. But I hope you guys like the new studio because there's nothing but wall behind me, and I can't do anything about the background until I put up a shelf. And maybe I'll put like a I have a poster of me. I AI'd it. I'll send you a picture of it. It's me eating KFC chicken. And the old school KFC art. Yeah. So like it's just a black and white photo of me crunching down on chicken.
get a plant and you'll be fine. Just a
Okay.
fake plant.
I have a cactus. My girlfriend hung it, and 2 o'clock in the morning, I went to go open up a window and stab myself in the head. I was like, why? Why is it there? Thank you, everybody, for listening to this episode of Out of the Blank podcast, and stay tuned for our next episode.